Hey everyone, Alex Mathers here, reporting to you from a park bench in Tbilisi, Georgia, surrounded by people selling pots and pans and knives and old cameras. So sitting here like the true hobo that I am, thinking about what to share with you guys. And I wanted to chat today about the struggle that a lot of us have as artists and people sort of working for themselves. And when I say artists, I'm not necessarily talking about, painters and craftspeople and creatives necessarily, although you guys are included, of course. But anyone who's in the business of selling the world on their own uniqueness and their own ideas, their own innovative ideas, and how hard that can sometimes be, because you can often feel very isolated or lonely in that position because no one else is out there doing that stuff. It's just you, and it can sometimes feel, what on earth am I doing this for? Why don't I just have a real job? So people who are employed, or I'm talking to you guys as well, but really I'm addressing people who are in the same boat as me, coaches, writers, freelancers, anyone who's in the business of formulating their own niche product, their own niche service that's different to everyone else's, or at least trying to be different. It can be really hard. As I said, it can feel like a lonely business, especially if you're in that phase, which I guess never really ends. The phase of not being known yet, and not really getting that traction, not really seeing that engagement that you're looking for, especially when you're surrounded by people on the web who you're going to get trillions of likes every day and seem to be doing a lot better than the rest of us. And wanted to talk about some of the ways we can see the positives in all this, and give you a sense that there are other people just like you, including myself, who sometimes get a bit down in this kind of industry, and how I pick myself up every day and continue on despite feeling like a bit of a maverick and a bit of a rebel without much support. It's good to know sometimes that there are other people in the same place, and I guess we'll all be in that place at some point along the way, and I suppose there's never really going to be an end destination, so there's always going to be that sense, especially if you're doing your own thing, of not being supported, not being understood, and feeling a bit lost occasionally, even if yesterday felt a lot better. You can have your ups and downs, and the reality is that it is hard, and there is going to be struggle. And one of the first things I'd like to say is that if you feel fear, or if you feel scared in your position, know that fear is an indication of you moving in the right direction. You should make use of fear. Fear is a sign that you're on vulnerable ground often, and you wanna play on that. You want to take advantage of that, either by moving closer to that fear, because fear is usually an indication of where you should be. I'm really skeptical of the guys who talk about only doing what you enjoy doing. I think that's part of it, but I think there's two sides to this kind of business, especially being an artist. In that you've got to confront the things that scare you, because those are the things that are going to make you grow, but they also are going to expand your business. So don't worry when you feel fear. Know that you're actually in the right place, and make use of it. If you see fear, if you feel it, move towards it and overcome them. Overcome those fears. Use those fears as signs of places that you need to be getting stronger in. So it's not just about tripling down on your strengths, which a lot of people talk about. Doubling down on what you're good at is great, but I think you've got to think big about this, and you've got to incorporate the crappy stuff as well. You've got to confront all of it. You've got to build on all of it. So yes, build on your skills, do the stuff that interests you, but also if you feel isolated and you feel alone, that's usually a pretty good indication that you're doing the right thing. You're moving into ground that no one else has been before. You're really on the frontier. You're trying new things, and that goes hand in hand with being creative and being a salesman, effectively, of of unique ideas, and being an innovator is always going to involve being in making new ground and being in places that no one else has been before. So understand that, and understand that everyone who's invented something or come up with their own ideas, their own take on something, even if it's a writer or a coach who's recycled previous ideas but is now coming up with their own approach to whatever it is they teach or help others with, it's always going to be uncomfortable because you're always moving into new ground like that. But learn to love that feeling if you can. There was a good quote that I picked up recently from, I think it was Grant Cardone, one of my favorite guys, who talks about sales very interestingly. He talked about how you don't need to love what you do to love what you do. Okay, so when you hear people talking about, they're doing what they love, they're living the dream, they might not be talking about all the hard side to that, the difficult side. There's at least 50% of that is going to be behind the scenes, suffering, pain of some sort. And you don't have to hate it. You can view pain as I said, a good indication of what you should be doing, and use the suffering as a sort of a foundation on which to get better, and to strengthen your mind and to strengthen yourself, and see it as a game, see it as fun. That certainly helps with me. So whenever I'm feeling off or feeling lost, I just remind myself that this is what I'm supposed to be feeling as a creative, and that's fine. And it's a journey, as everyone talks about, and I don't think the actual process ever gets easier, and I don't think you'll ever feel like you've reached a particular plateau or a particular place that is ideal. You're always going to have that sense of, okay, I can do better than this and better than this. It's more a case of how you handle your mindset and your mind and your perspective. How you deal with pain is actually the most crucial aspect of this kind of business. Also think of the idea that this kind of industry, this way of doing business, i.e. being a creative, being an artist, being a maverick, being a rebel, is the safe route these days. The risk-taking route, the uncomfortable, sort of vulnerable career path now is actually the secure route, and those who are employed and have the security of a steady paycheck are actually more at risk than those of us who have to wake up each morning without any confidence in where their paycheck is going to come from. Because if you're working for a company, that's great, and I encourage people to work for companies and to work for employers for experience and discipline and everything else that's good that comes with that. But don't rely on it, because you could have your boss drop you at any moment. Whereas if you run your own thing, you'll never drop yourself unless you quit. So see it that way. See the fragility of how it feels to be a creative, an artist, a freelancer. See that as a strength. See it as a positive, because when you're constantly feeling the knocks of life and the downsides and the struggles of having to get out there and wait and find your own self-discipline and find your own work and find your own clients, it's a constant barrage of little stresses that are actually really good for you, really healthy for you, because you're actually, whether you know it or not, you're strengthening yourself with every new day, with every hour, with every 5 minutes that you spend in this world, even if it's part-time. You are strengthening. You are becoming a warrior in that way. So know that the risk-taking strategy, which is the one that you're in right now, the precarious industry that you're in, is the secure one, because you're getting stronger, you're not at risk of losing your job, and especially if you're in a business that involves multiple customers, multiple clients, if you lose a client, it's not the end of the world. You just go out and get another one. If you lose a customer, you've got other ones to fall back on. If you have one employer and you lose them, it's gone. You have to start from scratch. And the competition out there for jobs is huge. You're not necessarily going to get a job quickly. So enjoy the process of being vulnerable in this career. know that there are other people also struggling and suffering, and know that there is a dark phase closer to the beginning, and it might take decades to get out of that dark phase, even though there'll be, overall, you're gonna love it, especially if you view pain and suffering as a part of it, as an exhilarating part of your growth on that journey. That's fine. But there's going to be a phase where people don't know you, and there's no traction. People aren't finding you yet. There's a ton of competition now. So even though we've got the internet, and we have all these avenues now whereby people can find us more easily than they once did, and I'm able to live in places like Georgia because of the internet. If there was no internet, I would definitely be employed somewhere, probably in London, and probably not that happy. So be grateful for that freedom that comes with the internet. I know that I'm rambling, but what I'm saying is that with the huge amount of competition that the internet's opened up for all of us, and the huge amount of content being shared on the internet, and just the huge torrent of stuff that other people are sharing, and very high quality stuff, it's plain and simple going to be a struggle. It's going to be hard no matter what, but it's going to be even harder if you sit still and choose the comfortable route, because the risks are greater in that world. I think you're more at risk of losing your job. I'm losing my train of thought, but I hope that makes sense. Those points have helped me a lot. Know that this career path is going to be a lot of work, and actually with the added competition and the added barrage of content, your only option is to make a lot of stuff, is to share a lot of stuff. Obviously some career paths might be easier than others in terms of how you structure things. You might find it easier. You don't even necessarily need to have mailing lists and be on social media and all that stuff to get business, but either way you're going to have to build up a strong skill set, and you've got to build up a certain amount of value that people are going to find useful. So it's all work, really. Don't think that you are going to find that magical unicorn job that involves a 4-hour work week. It's plenty of work, but you can also view that as exciting. I find that once I've committed to being a productive maniac and just enjoying that process of feeling alive through taking on the hits and doing more and creating, I feel like I'm sustained nicely. I think the only times that I feel depressed in this kind of work is when I slow down, is when I take too much of a breather. If I go on a break and things slow down and I'm not making money, I'm not getting the sense of satisfaction I get from little wins, like putting up one of these videos or sharing a tweet or something. Enjoy every part of it. Find a way to enjoy it, and with enough work, enough output, and enough continual movement along that path, and enough iterations, you're going to find things that are going to be ideal for you. But things will only be ideal if you understand that there's going to be pain involved, there's going to be dissatisfaction, discomfort. But if you view those things as positives, you can't lose. So I could talk on this for a lot longer. I wanted to just put this up here to generate questions from you guys. If you've got any maybe ideas for new break-off videos on this point of how hard it can be in that especially early stage where no one knows you and you're in obscurity, you're in the darkness, and you feel that sense of loneliness and even despair because it feels like you're not really going anywhere, and the competition around you is massive, and who's gonna, how are you gonna be found in and amongst all this noise? But there are ways through it. There are ways that all of this is teaching you stuff that you can pick up on and incorporate into your next steps. So you might find that the feedback you get from putting out a certain number of videos every day or a certain amount of content every day will give you feedback on what kinds of things people clue in on. It just takes a lot of work, but enjoy that process. So it's a mix of setting interesting targets, which I always talk about, interesting goals, but also enjoying the process, understanding that the process isn't all fun, There's plenty of pain, plenty of struggle, and that's fine. We're human beings. We're supposed to feel negative feelings. We don't need to get hung up on them. Use them as indications as to where to move, what things you need to tighten up. If you have weaknesses, don't turn away from them unless fixing them won't help in any way. There's a lot of things that we confuse as weaknesses that we actually should be attacking. For example, in my case, well, I'm getting better at it now, but sort of communicating and using my voice and networking and things like that. These are all things that I used to be terrible at, which I've now doubled down on, and I'm now incorporating speaking and sharing my voice as one of my main avenues of my business, and that has done a huge amount of good for me. I could have spent all my life being only an illustrator, which I love to do, and if I'd followed the advice of just do what you love, I would have only done illustration, but I was always hitting a ceiling with that. I never really allowed myself to really grow properly through that. I'm not saying don't do illustration. Illustration's fantastic, but I'm saying that you need to view that career as a package that involves not only the art. That's like maybe 30%. There are many other pieces to that puzzle, many other weaknesses that you might have, many other fears that might be involved in that full package that you might have to double down on and get really, really good at. And as I talk about, if you've got things that you are scared of, they're usually pretty good indications of things you need to not only just sort of deal with, but become, have a target of being one of the best in the world at that. I'm reading a really interesting book by what's his name, David Goggins, I think his name is. Funny old name. Sounds like a character from a Postman Pat cartoon, David Goggins. But he was a down and out delinquent African American dude who suffered prejudice and had a really tough upbringing with a dad who beat him up, and he really struggled. He got really overweight until he flipped it around and realized that rather than try to build on his strengths, of which he didn't find he had any, he only really saw that he had weaknesses that needed improving. So rather than seeking out what he loved to do, he decided to, as he says, triple down on the stuff he was terrified of, which was to make something of himself and become physically fit. So he became a Navy SEAL, and he's now considered to be one of the world's toughest blokes. He does huge ultra marathons and all that kind of stuff. So he reminded me about how to deal with struggle and how we need to really embrace it and almost savor it. So if you've got pains, use it as an impetus to get better and to see it through the eyes of a warrior rather than to sort of step aside of it all the time. And through that process, you'll become stronger, you'll become more motivated, you'll become more confident in yourself, and of course that will lead to a lot of the creative output that you're looking for in those other areas. So you don't need to just do one or the other. Think about it abundantly. Allow yourself to live a rich life that involves getting over your struggles and your pains and your insecurities. You've got to master those things, otherwise you'll always have that nagging voice in your head saying, you gotta do something about that, man. Don't ignore me here. So all those things that you're not confronting, you gotta get on top of those things. And as I said, that'll feed into feeling better about yourself. And of course, when you feel better about yourself, you start to really come up with those innovative, creative ideas that are going to make your creative, artistic business, top of the line. So I'm considering setting up a membership group where every week I do a live call talking about a series of challenges that I'm going to set for you guys, including myself, because I'm going through that process as well, involving various challenges that we can do together as a group. There'll be a monthly fee to help me along a little bit as well, and also give you that added incentive to do the tasks. And it can be, challenges like going into the town and talking to strangers, or dealing with rejections in various ways, networking, all the things that are going to push your business forward and overcome your own fears. And as a group, I'd like to have feedback from you guys on what kinds of challenges we could take on together. I'll also set like a 30-day challenge for example, writing a book together, or writing maybe a certain number of articles each month, whatever it is that pulls us up and makes us feel better about ourselves and continually push our self-growth and confidence. That's what I want to do. I want to create that group together. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Ask me any questions about that you have. And make sure that you're following me through my blog, alexmathers.net, M-A-T-H-E-R-S, alexmathers.net. Follow the newsletter there to keep up to date with what I'm up to. Follow me wherever I appear. I'm on many channels now, many platforms. Any questions you have about this, fire them at me below. Write a comment. I'm always pleased to see comments. Like this video, subscribe, and yeah, stay positive. Really, I know that people say that a lot, but you've got to. Every day is a new start from scratch, isn't it? You know, every day you wake up feels like it's all back to square one, and that's normal. You know, we all feel that. And just wanted to let you guys know that, you know, we're all in the same boat. We all struggle, no matter how far along the line we are, and we just have to keep reminding ourselves of all the positive reasons we're doing all this stuff, and don't quit. All right, I'll see you in the next video, guys.